So hello everyone. We start with the monthly meeting of the C2C DACH. Usually this is in German, but today we do it in English because all the speakers, almost all, only speak English. And today we're talking about the minimum viable landing zone, how to unlock cloud adoption. I give you a short overview how we are organized in C2C DACH. So there are three team leaders, Chanel, Dominic, and me, and I do the introduction today. What is C2C? C2C is for connecting Google Cloud customers in the DACH region, or C2C in the whole world. So there are also other regions where you could join. And it's about telling each other nice stories about Google Cloud and exchanging experience. Okay, and today we have three speakers, and Sahil Suri will do the moderation. Sahil Suri is the cloud adoption lead from Google. So Sahil, stage is yours.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Elias, Michelle. Thanks for getting this event in this form and so that we can talk about minimum viable landing zones. So first thing first, we're going to talk about here cloud adoption, and most of the cases, cloud adoption starts with what we have started defining at Google Cloud, what we are calling it a minimum viable landing zone. Now, I have two esteemed colleagues with me who will speak about their cloud adoption journey, which started with a minimum viable landing zone. And I'll give you the details what a minimum viable landing zone is. But before I do that, to do the honors, I will first request my colleague Matthias to introduce himself and give us a brief overview of who he is and what he is doing with Google Cloud.
Yeah, hello to everyone. I'm really appreciate to have the opportunity to talk today. I'm Matthias Riepl. I'm working for Bahag, as you can read Bahag, but it's Bauhaus. It's a German do-it-yourself retailer. I'm part of the online department and I'm head of shop. So I'm responsible for the web shop, the mobile app, order management. So anything which is customer facing. And we decided a few months ago from a strategic point of view to move as much stuff as possible to Google. And this is when we started to align with Google itself and some partner companies to somehow create this minimum viable landing zone. And we are already done. I think most of the details will follow in the upcoming conversation. So thanks, Sahil, for being here.
Thank you, Matthias. If I may, Yasin, can you also please quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and a great opportunity to discuss this great topic. So my name's Yasin Quareshy. I am Head of Technology for Cloud Services at TUI Group. And my primary role is to lead the organization's digital transformation into the cloud space. So my team provides the capabilities to make cloud adoption attractive and easy for our business. And we've been in the cloud transformation journey for quite a few years now with multiple cloud providers. And recently we made a decision to standardize the use of Google Cloud in our organization due to the increased usage and demand. So the landing zone concept is not entirely new for us in my organization, but for the Google Cloud implementation is the first one that we are actually in the middle of delivering at the moment. So TUI Group is the world's #1 integrated tourism business. So we provide approximately 27 million customers holiday experiences to over 180 destinations. And we provide the fully integrated holiday experience. So we have approximately 150 aircraft, over 400 hotels, and also 15 cruise liners. And we also provide in-resort destination services.
Thank you, brilliant, Yasin. I told you as an earlier conversation, I'm a big fan of TUI and I use them often for my holidays. So cool. Let's get started. So Thomas, if I can, please, can you move to the next slide? lot of talk around what a landing zone is, right? So let me get this in a very simple, as much as possible. What we're defining at Google Cloud Landing Zone is a connection from our customers, and by customers, I mean their people. Their people is important. Their people and their IT infrastructure, and that needs to be connected to Google Cloud, right? So that's a connection of people and of the IT infrastructure to reap the benefits of Google Cloud, right? Now, to make it more concrete, landing zone is not obviously specific to Google Cloud. Landing zone is a concept that any organization that will need to for any public cloud, if the organization aims to use that public cloud in a secure and compliant fashion. Now, this can actually become a very daunting task pretty quickly, as I mentioned, words like security, compliance, and all that stuff, and the number of products all these cloud providers have. So to simplify this for our customers, at Google Cloud, we've developed a program, a concept, which we're calling a minimum viable landing zone. And it has actually 3 dimensions to it. First, time. We take a commitment with our customers like Yasin and Matthias in the call that we will deliver this minimum viable landing zone in 90 days. And you will see why this 90 days is important. The second dimension to this is together. We're going to do this together with the customer. We are not coming with a standardized black box sandbox that we are going to deliver to all the customers. So I know the design for Yasin's landing zone and Matthias's landing zone, they are fairly different, and they have been designed with them in that 90-day period, right? So it's not a black box. That's super important. And it also helps the customers to get up to speed, because one of the things, and we'll talk about this in the following, people need to get up to speed. This is fairly new technology, right? So that's why this together is very important. And then the modular, and if I may, Thomas, now on the next slide. We also take, when we talk about this 90 days and we talk about doing together, we also take a pledge that whatever we'll do in those 90 days, we will not throw it away. And it becomes the basis for you to do whatever you will do in the future with Google Cloud, right? So it's TTM. Normally it can be time to market, but here it's time together modular. And here you can see one possible definition of a minimum viable landing zone. And once it's established, any application that will come on top of that landing zone will also force the landing zone to evolve. So this is how we are defining a minimum viable landing zone. And to see the benefits and the experience, and again, I'm thankful for Yasin and Matthias to share this experience. Now we go into a kind of a discussion, and I will start with Yasin in this case. So Yasin, most of the times when we speak about this cloud adoption, right, and we talk about even minimum viable landing zone, the first thing that comes up is a lot of our customers have this challenge that how do I set up a project team from an organizational viewpoint, right? How do I get a working mode done with Google Cloud? So please tell us, how did you achieve that within the TUI group?
Yeah, so what I can do is first explain our organization and the journey that we're going through, and then I can talk about the team. So it gives you a context of why we did the way we did it. So in the last 2 years, we've accelerated our digital transformation of our organization from moving from project delivery to product delivery model. And we've established domains with product delivery teams using Agile and DevOps practices. So we created a specific area called the enablers domain. That's where I sit. That is a cross-functional global team within TUI technology. So we're responsible for the effective delivery of IT capabilities that support our product teams build the best digital travel experiences. So we use APIs, cloud, on-premise platforms, and DevOps methodologies. So we have a multidisciplinary team of experts across architecture, engineering, DevOps, and Agile delivery. And my team's responsibility is to provide solutions and consultancy and guidance for getting started into running in the cloud. So this is through the creation of cloud-native, cost-effective, reliable, and secure solutions. So the landing zone project, we actually established that with a virtual team of just 5 cloud engineers. And those engineers had a breadth of skills. So not just understanding how to run cloud services, but security disciplines, network disciplines, and also working with our internal engagement teams as well to make sure that we can accelerate our design and delivery within a 12-week period. So the concept of this is to approach things slightly differently. So the landing zone can be a bit daunting. So the first decision we made was we want to start something very quickly. We don't want to spend a long period of time learning about the concepts, agreeing on the concepts, and then delivering them. So we started with just those 5 engineers and created the enablement process to get our hands dirty, to deliver the value and learn at the same time. And the partnership we created with the Devo team, who we selected as the people who deliver the service for us, we worked very closely with them, and we're still doing that at the moment to think about as we are delivering, also think about how the future setup of our organization will look.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think one of the key thing is exactly like getting your hands dirty, as you rightly said, because what we have also seen is sometimes we get into too much of slideware, and at some point the engineers want to get their hands dirty, right? So Matthias, in my professional network in Google, right, I don't know anybody who's done 2 landing zones at 2 different customers. So I think you're already unique. So, and you've done this twice. So explain us, how did that happen, and what did you learn, and how was the second time different from the first time?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I did it 2 times, but I would say one time very efficiently, the other one not. So just to give you some background. So 4 years ago, I was responsible for the cloud adoption at MediaMarkt Saturn, and we decided to change a very similar journey to Yasin finally, from a project delivery organization towards a product-centric delivery organization. And we wanted to use as much modern technologies as possible. So everything is a microservice. You use modern monitoring deployment solutions. You use Kubernetes and so on for infrastructure management. And but 4 years ago, it was like I had no clue what it means to really bring a cloud to a bigger company on the one side, what it means to be secure, to set up the network, to be able to monitor everything, to have transparency about the cost, to manage also identity and access rights, which is a huge thing, but which could be handled very easily if you have a product organization and you are clever and you're using the cloud capabilities. And just to give you some figures, what it meant for me to create this minimum viable landing zone to finally run the web shop as first customer on Google Cloud. I had at the very beginning 10 people, and I created an organization with around about 45 cloud engineers. On the one side, we supported the application developers very heavily, but I would say half of the time was spent for creating the necessary stuff, that everything is orchestrated, automated, and works as expected. And it took me around about 12 months to have a sweet spot, a state where you can say, now I have my roles and rights management, now I'm secure, now I have my network integration, now I know about the costs, and I can do some cost management, and I also can enforce them guidelines. But to be honest, we had a lot of gaps. So you don't do it fully automated from the very beginning. You don't do it super clever from the very beginning. You make wrong decisions, and therefore you later need huge efforts to somehow come to a sweet and normal cloud usage. The second time I did it was now at Bauhaus, and it was totally different. So Yasin, you had 5 engineers. We started with 2 internal engineers, and I had Sebastian Zucker from Endocode as in the main now Devo team, I think, the main consultant. And it was really like we created a minimum viable landing zone in 90 days we covered everything. We automated everything from the very beginning. It was not like consuming a black box. It was like Sebastian said, what do you want to have? How do you structure your organization? How do you cut your teams into products? Do you want to orchestrate access rights and so on? How do you want to set up network? And we customized the specific solutions to our Bauhaus needs and were heavily supported by Sebastian, but we finalized everything in 90 days with only 2 people. And if you compare this, so I would say an average 25 people for 9 up to 12 months, and not having a full landing zone on the one side, to spending 90 days, bring in 2, 3, 4, 5 internal developers and work closely together with a adoption partner. It's super efficient because after 90 days, you really can go to production. And we finalized in the last weeks the network setup, the shared VPC stuff, and all this kind of things. And we are now at a point where we really start to produce our stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, it's finally from a management perspective, time and scope. This landing zone creation is I honestly, I personally, I could not believe it that it's possible to create all this stuff in 90 days, but it's possible.
Yeah, thank you, Matthias. I think that is a key point, right? It's also the maturity of technology, right, in 4 years, and also maturity of the customer and the organization itself, right? That also plays a role. So we are still having a lot of customers where we're having these long discussions. I will say a little bit of a waterfall model that we continue to discuss about potential designs for lots of time, because everybody's trying to, get the last nut and bolt tightened, and maybe it's not needed because your application may not need that, right? So that's also another thing. But you hit a very interesting note there about adoption partners, right? Now, obviously, landing zone is the first step towards cloud adoption, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you see from a change perspective? How are you driving this change of this new technology? How are you bringing colleagues up to speed on I would still say cloud is fairly a new technology, right? So once the landing zone is done, which is in your case, how are you driving the change process in terms of enablement, in terms of getting people informed? How are you driving that at Bauhaus?
Yeah, I would say there are several measures. So on the one side, I have an internal cloud platform team, which also is doing some specific consultancy when it comes to use cases, network integration, and so on. But this is not the main part, and it's maybe the latest part in enabling an organization. At the very beginning, I think we really have to talk about why do you move to cloud? What are the benefits? What is the strategic thinking behind this movement? And in addition, most companies also do the agile transformation. And then it's becoming, in my opinion, a very sweet thing, because you want to become agile, you want to live this aligned autonomy on the one side, and cloud is giving you the perfect foundation to do so and to decouple teams via the services and so on. Secondly, then if people have understood why maybe this new thing, cloud, so to say, is good for the teams, for the productivity and so on. You have the buy-in, and then you have to train the people. And in our company, it's not just like please start and do something. We created huge training tracks, so to say. I partnered with ROI Training from New York, a Google Cloud specialized training partner. And we set up new joiner trainings for everyone who is coming new to the company. They spend at least 4 weeks in serverless coding on GCP and do it from the beginning to end, so to say. They create an app, a project, and it's hands-on training on the one side. And all my engineers will do in the next months Google Cloud certification. So we provide training, but we also talk about that. We have tech talks internally. We have lunch and learn sessions. We show each other good implementations, good reference patterns, and so on. And we also tell each other if something has not worked properly. So because this is more or less the more interesting stuff, so to say. And this it's our approach to enable the company, but honestly, it always takes a little bit time. So it's not like you send someone to a training and then he comes back and is the perfect cloud native coder, so to say, knows everything. I think it takes a lot of time to get this deep knowledge and experience, but you have to enable people that for most engineers, it's like changing the way they work when they move to cloud. And this is, you have to take away the fears, and you have to explain the people why this is so important and makes coding and delivery finally super efficient if you do it like this.
Cool. No, thanks. Yeah, brilliant. So Yasin, how do you see like cloud adoption? Like you said, right? You're responsible, like in a way, you're serving your internal customers, right? Now, from a organization standpoint, what do you think is an ideal setup for cloud adoption to increase in businesses, right? Because again, the new technology angst is there still, right? So, what do you think from a setup perspective? What has done TUI has done good, or what do you think you want to achieve in going forward for cloud adoption to increase?
Yeah, so I think we are a very large organization. So our main obsession is making customer experiences special, and we want to deliver value quickly. But at the same time, we don't want to compromise our core values of being trusted, unique, and inspiring. And leveraging cloud solutions allows our organization to focus on delivering customer capabilities and not worry about managing infrastructure. So in order to deliver cloud adoption at scale, we need to minimize the engineering overhead of delivering solutions in the cloud by removing the burden on the teams to work out how they should provision their workloads. So a well-designed landing zone can accelerate the consumption of cloud services by providing the tooling and services that meet our standards and the compliance for security, user access management, service and resource deployment, connectivity, and ability in general to make use of reusable project solutions very, very quickly. So from a business perspective, the landing zone provides a central control for the organizational standards and best practices. And it also gives us the visibility of usage, billing, and security risks.
Absolutely,
and,
yes.
The landing zone gives the business confidence in the scalability and predictability of our service in general.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And let's say now, so we spoke about, setting up, we spoke about adoption, right? So now let's look at the impact, right? So Matthias, after like you accomplished this project, right, and it's been a couple of months, do you see like this project has led to some kind of an impact on your IT strategy, on how you're approaching? Has there been some broader influence of this project?
Yeah, definitely yes. So and in several areas. So from honestly, when we started, we had one cloud provider which has not been Google. So and so the initial thinking was like, maybe we think of a multi-cloud provider strategy and we add Google to someone else, and somehow we thought we have to manage all the overhead you get if you do multi-cloud stuff. But because my initial assumption has been, okay, it will take 12 or maybe 15 months until we have enough skills, until we have this landing zone ready, until everything is working, until teams really can see that they can use the Google Cloud for their services and for their delivery. But after having the first sessions to this landing zone, you could feel, okay, it's like we will do it in 90 days. And if you have all this in 90 days, we started to enforce maybe the movement towards Google, but on the other side, also my engineers, they all opted out for Google. So it was a win-win situation. And for me, for a strategy point of view, it's like I don't have to manage two clouds anymore. I have one cloud, and this is the simplest approach in my situation right now. So it had a huge impact on the IT strategy, because it's somehow enabled me to drive a single cloud provider strategy instead having a multi-cloud provider strategy, and this also reduces complexity and makes us pretty fast.
Cool. And sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah.
No,
no
problem.
No, thanks.
One point again.
Sure.
So when it comes to strategy is one thing. The other thing is, so what's combined with strategies. For sure, everything is an API. We code in microservices. We try to avoid this heavy infrastructure management. So ideally, just commit your code and the rest is done automatically, and you do not even see it. So this is now possible, and it's not like I'm telling or talking about a vision. You now can feel it. You now can use it, and you can directly experience it. And the last point, which is super interesting, is the roadmap point, because you are able to deliver faster. So everything we initially planned coming in 2023 or maybe 2024, it now turned out by having this landing zone and by directly being able to start in production now, it's a very interesting thing to speed up your whole roadmap. And this is also a I don't know how to call it, but maybe finally the best outcome of this whole thing.
So that's interesting, because I worked with both of you, so I know Yasin has a slightly different environment, right? So Yasin, where do you see similarities and where do you see differences? Can landing zone become that differentiator, or I know you have a different setting in general in TUI, so maybe you can little bit give insights. How do you see what Matthias said?
Yeah, I think I pretty much resonate with what Matthias has said. It's very similar to how we've experienced it in our organization. But I think from my perspective, it's very important to build the landing zone using the expertise from people who have got the experience and can help us apply the best practices in this space. So I've seen teams in other organizations who've built landing zones to the best of knowledge, and very quickly they've got stuck in the design constraints. And ultimately that leads to having to repeat the process, which is not really a good experience. And sometimes it can lead to a very difficult position where if you create significant technical debt, it makes it harder to improve that process. So building the landing zone with our partner Devo team has been a real good pleasure, because they've made it very easy for us to understand the scope of the challenge, identifying various topics of the landing zone, telling us about the effort required right at the beginning of the engagement, and also allowed us to identify the right people in our organization to work on the project. And the Devo team spent a third of the time helping us with the design solution, just to make sure it fits our organization. And this is just to make sure that our organizational standards for security, connectivity are clearly defined and understood before we start building anything. But the toughest part for me in the process has been getting internal alignment on how we integrate the GCP cloud with our on-premise and other cloud providers, because there are many options available, right? So you have to weigh up the cost, the performance, the reliability, and we have to make sure that the decisions are made transparently, so that it's easy for us to come back and revisit that decision if we need to. So the process may sound a bit daunting, but it's really made easier through the collaboration to make sure that decisions are agreed and documented. And the positive aspect of the engagement is giving our team members opportunity to learn as they build as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think working with a lot of other customers, I think this has been, so whenever we tell them that we can do this in 90 days, right? And that's why the time and the together is very important. We take a commitment together as a team to do this in 90 days, right? And I know we've had these discussions around the interconnect and VPN in your case, right? And this is a discussion we have all the time, and I see Matthias smiling. And but these are exactly those design decisions, right? Because there is no particular standard way that a landing zone should be, right? So, and that interaction, that close-knit interaction is super important, because then you can take a collective decision. It may not be the best decision, right? I mean, obviously VPN has a lower bandwidth than interconnect, but you can do it faster. So, and then these are, these kind of decisions have to be taken maybe more or less on a daily basis. Then you get to, and thanks for highlighting it, because this is exactly what we're telling customers as well. 90 days, roughly 30 to 40 days, we're doing design, because the implementation is pretty much standard, but that design phase is very important, and we need to discuss and document that in a fashion that you can actually go back and look into it 6 months later, right? So, brilliant. Let's talk about the business people as well, because landing zone is here. Landing zone is still a tool. It's an important one. How are in general talking about, like, when you're serving your businesses, right? What are their ambitions? How much are they informed that this is possible? Do you see a gap, like whatever we've spoken about? And so I start with you, Yasin. I mean, how are companies in general, in your experience, striking this balance between business ambitions, their awareness, and what technology can do? Like what Matthias said earlier, like in 4 years, it has changed so much. So how is the business adapting, reacting? Are they aware of this?
Yeah, the landing zone is pretty much an internal thing, right? The business don't really care what the landing zone is.
Absolutely,
they
yes.
care about the workload. They just
They
want
do.
the app deployed, and they wanted to see it working.
Yeah.
Pretty much in the sense of I click a button and it's there.
Yeah.
The great thing for my team is that because we are a central team, we have a great view of the business demand and technology and the people maturity across the organization. And my team strikes the balance between the three aspects by providing visibility of the current state through the central reporting that we have, and responding to the common patterns of requests across the organization. And we promote training programs on either improving skill sets or knowledge on particular topics. And the outcome of which is a result in opportunities in my team to help solve common problems by introducing this automation that through the landing zone, and pushing the technology boundaries of our innovations. Because Matthias said himself, if you can have a good working landing zone, you have greater opportunity to exploit how you can use the cloud technologies and how you can mix the different services and be assured that it's actually within the compliance that we've agreed to. So for me, the landing zone concept is not a static solution. It's not, I've built my minimum landing zone and it's done. It's an evolving service. So as Google Cloud announces new ways of doing things, we have to adapt and adopt the landing zone. But it's a great building block for us. So the evolution is a constant learning experience for all of us as well.
Yeah. Matthias, how do you see that? How is the business within Bauhaus? How are they reacting?
Yeah, so I don't have the business area. So we are working in a biz tech company. So I'm business and technology. We combine it.
Yeah. You have a different setup. That's interesting. Yes, that's correct.
The sweet spot. But so maybe from my point of view, finally, it's about productivity and speed and in sense of reactivity. So being able to fulfill change customer needs as fast as possible. And the whole modularization, reusability, harmonization, and all these buzzwords you can put into a strategy and you think of customer facing services, then the cloud in general enables you. And then you have to take into account where I'm coming from. So we had not so much internal development capacity on the one side. So I'm internalizing a lot of dev capacity. And I have let's call it not the most modern technology stack currently. So I need to modernize because nearly everything is end of application lifecycle. So you can imagine the overall productivity is pretty low. And if you then think, and this is business topic, how to modernize, how to become more productive, how to become faster, you need to change. And the initial assumption was, okay, maybe I jump 2, 3, or 4 years into the future. But having this, the cloud set it up in this 90 days, it enables me to jump 5 or 6 years into the future and what you can use currently. And my people, so I had no restrictions, no dependencies on the roadmap. So the cloud is here now, and any team can use cloud, and any team uses the I would not say maybe the most popular, but we try to use the most modern stuff. And this really contributes to productivity, because right now I spend a lot of money and I get a less implementation or story points, you name it. So the value created is pretty low. And all I do is to improve this value created by the same amount of money I put in. And that's finally a business topic. And
Right.
the landing zone approach enabled me to realize this value a little bit faster and earlier, and it also simplifies the a whole developer journey. So imagine Kubernetes and so on, and you look at classically abstraction platforms or developer platforms. It's like you always have to do a little bit of infrastructure management. You always handle the YAML files. You always talk about pod scaling. Then you change the ingress egress controller, and then everything becomes a little bit more complex. And this is also something we try to avoid, or we do not try to give to our coders internally. We decouple it and we keep it as simple as possible. And all this is possible if you really have a ready to use cloud in this 1 quarter. That's the deal.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So just keeping a tab on the time. So I have one last, let's say, set of questions. So I'm announcing this because I see a lot of people in the chat. I'm sure you might have questions and thoughts and comments. So obviously this is everybody's event. Please feel free to contribute. So my last question is actually more around collaboration, and we've touched around this. Obviously, I can't see all the faces, but I see my very good friend Lisa and Sebastian in the call from Endocode, and she's smiling. I like it. And obviously, and my Devo team colleagues might also be here, but I just can't see them on the screen. Now, Google Cloud in general, and we have announced this multiple times, we have a very, very clear partner-first strategy. And we're not only announcing this, but we are living it, right? I mean, this whole program has been actually co-developed, if I may, with our partner network, right? Because they explained us that how are other clouds doing, what our various customer challenges are, right? So this is not one man show or a one brain thing. Now, from a collaboration perspective, because when we speak to partners, when I speak to customers and also my colleagues speak to customers, there is always this thing that, oh, there is a little bit of a fear that I don't want to have this kind of black box, which I have tried to nail this down with. But there is also this discussion going on, which is like internal and internal or external, what. So how has been the collaboration in your case, right? So if I start with Yasin, right, how did you take this? I mean, I remember having this when we had our first call. I remember having this conversation with you as well. Yeah. I think it would be very useful for others in the call to understand how do you decide this? Because I think this constraint is there. Even Google has these constraints that we don't have the n number of cloud architects we like to have, right? So how do you handle that? And on the other hand, yes, we have a very clear partner first strategy, and we want to continue building these landing zones with our partner network. But what will you advise? Like, how did you decide that this is what I'll use with the partner, this is what I'll do with Google? So if you can share some light on the collaboration element here.
So I think one of the obvious things we were aware of is, we've got a growth in demand, and we don't necessarily have all the skill sets to actually meet that demand. And we've got a good partnership with the Google team for a long period of time now, and the relationship has been growing recently even more. And we recognized jointly that, that the usage and growth in our organization requires that level of standardization with the introduction of the landing zone. And we initiated the discussions with the Devo team, and the partnership started off extremely well because the Devo team were able to clearly demonstrate to us what they can deliver and how they can deliver it. So the initial engagement, they built a significant level of trust with us. And what we felt and still feel right now is that they've ultimately removed the burden of my team having to do heavy work of defining a fit for purpose solution. So this gives me confidence to promote the cloud adoption even further in my organization, as we have a great foundation to work from. And the beauty of the landing zone is that it's a repeatable method of delivery. So it doesn't matter which kinds of workloads we want to introduce, the landing zone is pretty much constant because it's looking at security, network, access management, etc. So it's been a great partnership, I would say.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. And also, I believe that the Google account team has been working with you, right? I see Shelja in the call, Elizabeth earlier as well, right? So this has been a kind of a trio working together, if I may say, right?
Correct.
And because we also see this from a lot of customers and hear some of the challenges. But I think there's also what I've also seen in various projects is that this is a delicate balance to strike, right? Because of also the discussion, how much customers want to do it themselves. Because again, new technology, there's a lot of craze of doing it themselves as well, right? So, Yeah, Matthias, how do you see this? You did this with Endocode, and they're in the call as well. What will be how was your experience? Would you recommend this going forward for other customers? Should we do it, or should we do it something different, or how do you see this happening?
Yeah.
Or do you see any challenges in this approach?
No, honestly not. So to be honest, at the very beginning, I thought I did it a few years ago, so I know all the benefits and how to do it and the pitfalls. But unfortunately, technology is evolving, so I was not up to date. and 1 year in cloud is maybe 10 years in former times when it comes to Java. So I don't know. I don't want to blame the Java people right now. So there is definitely a reason to somehow have a partner who has a strong connection to Google, who knows about a little bit what is coming, who knows about best practices, who has a good network behind the scenes to talk about different approaches and so on. And who also can do some strategy consultancy at the very beginning. So we started with strategy, and Sebastian, I think he's also in the call. So at the beginning, it was I talked to my people, and we created a vision how we want to produce software in the future. And then we talked to Sebastian and said, this is what we see. For sure, maybe it was a little bit more mature from when it comes how aligned is this vision with a cloud provider. But Sebastian then made some kind of challenges, and we had discussions, and we talked about whether we can do it like this or do it like that. He told us about pros and cons, and he especially told me what is maybe new and what is the experience of the market to specific assumptions I had. So you get feedback and you get clarity. And when it comes to the process itself, it was realigned super simple. Once a week, we had a touch point. We talked about the next steps, and
Absolutely.
then we defined packages and so on, deliverables, and we met 1 week later again. And this, it from my perspective, it was like, it's done. So I have 100 topics, and I always knew this topic, it runs, and they will create the platform. And it was like now we have a network, now we have the identity access management, now we have this and that and that. And this is from a management point of view, if you can see now, this is ready, this is ready, this is ready.
Yeah.
And everything is somehow, they know what you want and what's your philosophy regarding software production, and they can exactly give you how you have to orchestrate anything in the landing zone. And that's in my opinion, maybe I sound like a marketing guy of you, but I had the pain a few years ago, and I now can see the beautiful approach by having a partner, having the experience, and just create a landing zone. Just do it. That's it. Finally, know what you want to have, know how you want to do it, and then just do it.
Yeah. And so I think I should share a story here. So I'm involved in a lot of landing zone projects, and people ask me that what should be the most important thing, like internal Google colleagues, and I always advise them, get your meeting cadence right. Make sure that you get your right meeting cadence, you get your right people in the right meeting, so you know who's responsible for that. And that takes a lot of while, because suddenly you have a project and then there are 20 people, right? So you need to do that stakeholder mapping. So I think that thanks for highlighting that regular sync with Sebastian that you mentioned, right? And that's super important, because then you also know who's responsible for that actually when you are going into the implementation side. Cool. So we are 14 minutes to the hour. I'm sure I saw some comments popping up, which I assume are questions. So I don't know, Thomas, if you can see them, or Elias, anybody, if we can, I don't know how many questions or comments there are, and we can go through them maybe one by one.
Yes. So the first question was from Steve Larson. If you want, Steve, you can activate your camera and ask the question, or I will read it. Up to you.
Hey, I'm also in the room with Giannis. Yeah, just looking at what was being discussed in this minimum viable landing page, it looks very similar to a lot of the components that make up those Cloud Run, Cloud Deploy, Cloud Start PSO packages that Google has. Is this a new approach that Google has to combining, those different services into one, or is this, how does that relate to those Cloud PSO packages that Google has?
Yes, so I think that I'll take it. So those cloud PSO packages exist still, right? And they have helped us immensely to develop this program or this concept of minimum viable landing zone, right? So we have used those packages and the content delivered on those packages to upskill and bring our partner network and bring them up to speed. But then we have done a selective cherry picking little bit from an implementation standpoint and an approach like what Yasin was saying, a design workshop, which is limited to 35% of time. So I would not say that we have created significantly new IP in this. What we have created is a different way of doing the same thing. And we have cherry picked, let's say there were 5 packages, just to make it simple. We picked like a lot of content from 3 of those packages, brought somehow the expertise of a partner network, and then we got into this delivery mode.
So I guess then I'm wondering, is this going to be a new concept and approach then for partners to learn outside of those 4?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So we have selected pool of partners in Germany, and those partners are regularly kept up to speed and up to date how we are developing this. Having said that, most of our partners, they know a lot better as well. So they are also taking this and they are owning the assets and developing their own like Devo team. And also I know Sebastian has done a lot of work. For example, if you look into not only design patterns, but also implementation details like Terraforms and that. So a lot of our partners have built their own assets as well. So we don't want to get into that, but we keep on updating them with relevant material. For example, if there's a new product coming, if there's a new configuration coming of this, something like that, then we keep them posted. Yeah.
And then the final question, I'll leave it to the next person. So is there a plan then to release that to all partners, like the information is available now on those other cloud packages?
Yeah, we'll be happy to, if other partners are interested, we'll be happy to. So there's no like entry criteria now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, then we have a question from David Edwards. Do you also want to enable the camera and ask the question?
Yeah, hello, Google Germany. It's Google UK here. So Dave Edwards, I'm a customer engineer in the UK, look after a couple of customers here. I've actually one of my customers on the call. So Yasin, Matthias, great insight. Really enjoyed the first 45 minutes, but I'm always keen to understand, what were the most significant non-technical challenges in building this stuff? The technology is obviously the easy bit. Where did you have challenges within, I guess, your own respective IT organizations?
I can take
I can start
first. Okay, so I think we've had several teams who've got cloud implementations, and then I go knocking on their doors to say, guys, I'm going to give you a landing zone. I'm a central person who needs visibility of everything. Do you trust me? And immediate answer is no. Why should I? Right? That's the non-technical challenge. And what we did was actually, as part of the process, selected made the decision we will build the capability first, and we will demonstrate it to somebody else. Pick a small team and show them this is what we can do, and this is why it's beneficial for you. And the trust factor is, does that mean I lose control of my code? The answer is no, you don't. You actually benefit because we encourage open source contribution to the code base as well. So what that does is it grows the capacity of the entire IT organization to be able to make improvements to it. So you could have a department who's focused on analytics only, and then another department who's they're focused on delivering web applications, but they may have completely different problem sets that they may use again in the future. And giving that assurance that you don't lose control, in fact, will give you all the code so that you can manage it for yourself. It just allows us to give us central control and assurance from an organization perspective that we are meeting, for example, security compliance standards.
Cool. Matthias, you want to add?
Yeah, maybe a funny answer. GDPR. Somehow, yeah. Don't get me wrong, but it's also a change, and I would say so. Non-technical barriers to modernize. Maybe it's a cultural thing. and on the one side, and we are a very SAP heavy company, and we are a classical German company. So we invented the lights folder, but maybe we are not the most progressive people when it comes to use the most modern technologies. So we always fear it's a little bit too fancy or not secure enough, and so on. So from my point of view, the internal change by using Google Cloud, by going to this very modern approaches to create software and to run your stuff, people do not understand what's behind the scenes. For them, it's a black box. So you have to talk to them, you have to explain them, and especially, so the biggest problem I had, it was GDPR and security finally, because we in this company, we still thought that maybe having everything in his own own data center, highly protective and so on, is the better thing. And I had to convince that even maybe using Google Cloud is an enabler to fulfill GDPR requirements. So you have transparency, you can automate things, you have log files, you have audit traceability, all this stuff is in place. And this for me was one of the big problem areas I had, so to say. Or barriers, it's mental barriers finally, and cultural thing, and a little bit like maybe German data privacy specialists always think Google is evil. Don't get me wrong, but that's the main impression.
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah, Thomas, thanks, Matthias. David, I hope that answered your question, right?
It did, and thank you both very much. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Thomas, do we have more questions?
There are no more questions in the chat, but if any one of the participants has now a question, please
shoot.
Unmute and shout. And while
I have a question.
Michelle.
I'll do one. I just want to say thank you so much for today. I think it went really, really well, and we do appreciate you sharing so much with us. And I was just wondering, if you had to do this all over again, in particular you, Matthias, being a two-timer already, what do you wish you knew? What do you wish you knew then that you know now? What was the one thing that would have helped you at the beginning that you didn't know right away?
Automation first.
Automation
Super
first.
simple. Automate everything from the very beginning, and thanks Terraform, there are modules and stuff like that, and thanks to all that, there are a lot of build packages, and thanks to GitHub, they have actions and so on. So it's automation first, and that's the beautiful thing, because you don't have to take care anymore. If you don't automate the stuff, if you provide cloud services manually, you create technical debt, and you always then you reach a point where you have to modernize everything, and then it's no sweet spot anymore. So really use automation capabilities from the very beginning, and this is the only thing I want to give you as maybe the best advice I can give you.
Yasin, would you agree on this?
Yeah, for me, I think is stay focused. So agree on something and stick to it. Don't get overexcited, and don't try to solve too many problems at the same time. Because otherwise you'll end up with spending your 90 days and achieve very little. So have that focus of minimum viable product and keep to it. Do not exceed the barriers of minimum viable product is what I would say. In general, I think having clear understanding of what your compliance measures are in your organization, agreeing it with your stakeholders is very important because it helps make the decisions process and design process a lot easier and quicker.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I would agree with what Matthias was saying, because right now I've started shooting down projects where there is no automation, and people are like, okay, let's kind of bypass Sahil, because I always comment like, no, this we're not doing. Because there's always this temptation to go onto the console and click 5 buttons and deploy a virtual machine, because that's the beauty of it. But every time you do that, you're creating technical debt. So I agree. I will support Sebastian's mission of life. I can't do it myself, but I do understand that is at absolutely mandatory. Otherwise, you're just creating technical debt. I totally so agree to that. Yeah. Thank you, Matthias. We have 3 minutes, so maybe we can do one last. No, but I think I need to hand it over back to Thomas to be on time for the closing. So I would have to preempt any possible question before I get carried away. So Thomas, thank you for taking back.
Okay, so while I'm trying to share the screen again, I may ask you to click the link in the chat that Ilyas was sharing. So we have a feedback survey, so we want to improve ourselves too. So please click that, and there is an error sharing the screen. Okay, try again.
Okay. Are you on the right browser or no?
Explorer.
No Explorer here.
We need to get work done. There's no time to explore.
Okay, so the last point that we have now is our next meeting. So it will be in German, isn't it, Chanel? I hope so. This will be on the 9th of December at 4 o'clock, so same time. But the registration is not open yet, so don't look for it. But if you're interested in how these large companies like Barry Callebaut is working or changed to Google Workspace, this may be of interest. And I don't know, Ilyas, if the people get a notification if this event pops up or if they have to check again. We'll see that.
Of course, they can check again, and we can post it on the DACH dedicated group so that everybody will get the message.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, I think I can answer myself in the chat. The question from Marcin, if the event will be recorded. It was recorded and it will be shared. Will also be posted in the community chat. So then we are at the end, so a few seconds left, right on time. Thank you very much, Sahil, and all the organizers and the speakers. Looking forward to the next event.
Yeah, and I would also like to, again, Matthias and Yasin, thanks a lot for taking your time. I know you have a busy schedule, year-end approaching. So again, once again, thanks on behalf of Google Cloud, and also obviously Ilyas and Michelle and Thomas as well. Has been a good learning session for me as well personally. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
So we bang on time. I like that. 5 o'clock.